Have Saul Canelo Álvarez now. 4-division champion, 2-time undisputed super middleweight world champion. He'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer once he retires. He is the most decorated Mexican fighter in boxing history. Saul Canelo Álvarez, 63 wins, 3 losses, 2 draws, 39 wins by way of knockout. Is in camp, right? Canelo has a fight coming up September.
No way he will fight Jaron Ennis. And I'm actually sitting here still in shock that this fight is made. And I have to give unbelievable credit to Xander Zayas, because you are a great fighter, but you must have a massive set of cojones, because what you're about to take part in June 27th is one of the toughest tasks.
He was never expected to be there. Not in that gym, not under those bright lights, and certainly not exchanging punches with one of boxing's most feared stars. Yet somehow, Zia now finds himself training alongside Canelo Alvarez just days before the biggest fight of his career against Jaron Ennis. Is this a sign of growing confidence or a last-minute gamble? What did Canelo see in him? And more importantly, what are they really preparing for?
To do at the beginning of the year, I sat down with my team and I told them that I wanted to fight 6 times this year. And the biggest accomplishment that I know I will win this, I will win this award is Prospect of the Year at the end of this year. So I got to go through this fight and finish strong.
This isn't just about a few sparring sessions or sharing time in the same gym. It's about a young champion stepping into Canelo Alvarez's circle just days before facing one of the most dangerous fighters in boxing, Jaron Ennis. And all of a sudden, the narrative that seemed so certain begins to shift. A few years ago, mentioning Xander Zayas in a serious boxing discussion might have earned a polite smile and a quick change of subject because he was still viewed as a talented prospect with potential, not the rising star whose name now carries real expectations.
We're recently training in a pair of boots. Is that going to be an everyday thing in training camp moving forward?
Man, that was a funny video. I feel like it was kind of like a sneak peek for the fans before the fight was announced, and also I was wishing happy birthday to my favorite prospect, so it was a little bit of both. But I mean, I don't think I'm gonna implement them as an everyday thing. I don't think I need them. I just need to keep stepping on them.
We've seen Sebastian Fundora train in boots. Who knows? Maybe it's a secret sauce. You got to give it a try.
This isn't just about a few sparring sessions or sharing time in the same gym. It's about a young champion stepping into Canelo Alvarez's circle just days before facing one of the most dangerous fighters in boxing, Jaron Ennis. And all of a sudden, the narrative that seemed so certain begins to shift. A few years ago, mentioning Xander Zayas in a serious boxing discussion might have earned a polite smile and a quick change of subject because he was still viewed as a talented prospect with potential, not the rising star whose name now carries real expectations. Fast forward to today, and is no longer chasing a place in the super welterweight division. Has already arrived, sitting among the elite with world titles around his waist and forcing tough conversations among fighters who thought they had more time before facing this level of pressure. At just 23 years old, Zayas has built an impressive resume and a reputation that feels far beyond his years, making this moment both remarkable and...
I'm gonna rip his heart out. I'm gonna take him to somewhere he's never been. You know, he's gonna feel uncomfortable. He's gonna be uncomfortable when it comes to fight night. It's easy to face guys that you're bigger than them, you're more athletic than them. But when you're facing a guy that is as big as you, that is as athletic as you, that is as composed, as smart as you, it's a whole different story. And come June 27th, he will see why this 23-year-old is a unified world champion.
This is usually the kind of opportunity reserved for fighters who have already proven themselves on boxing's biggest stages, not someone still trying to convince skeptics that he belongs among the elite. Yet here we are, watching this unexpected partnership take shape, and one question keeps surfacing. What exactly did Canelo see in Zayas that made him reach out? For Zayas, this is far more than a simple training arrangement. It's personal. He has admired Canelo for years, studying his composure, discipline, and the remarkable calm he brings into fights where most fighters would feel overwhelming pressure. Moving from admirer to training partner changes everything because respect can inspire growth, but close exposure demands it. Zayas has worked to bring that same discipline into his own career, and it shows in the way he approaches boxing, not just as a physical battle, but as a strategic puzzle requiring patience, timing, and precision. With every fight, he has continued to evolve, carrying himself like someone who understands that talent alone is never enough to win championships, especially against an opponent like Ennis, whose reputation has been built on speed, intelligence, and a style that can make even elite fighters look uncomfortable. The path to this matchup, however, was far from simple. Before Ennis entered the picture, other potential opponents were discussed, including Josh Kelly, a fight that never came together despite serious interest. There was also talk of facing Virgil Ortiz Jr., but circumstances outside the ring prevented that matchup from happening, forcing Zayas and his team to keep searching for the right opportunity and the right challenge. Now, boxing is what fans rarely get. Two young stars, both confident, both fearless, and both convinced they are the best, choosing to settle the debate inside the ring rather than through social media exchanges or endless negotiations. In today's boxing landscape, that alone feels refreshing.
Boxing fans know the difference. These casual boxing fans, and it's the terrible part about it is that the promoters, the networks, the managers, they cater to the casual boxing fans because they know they'll pay for anything.
Zayas accepted the challenge without hesitation, not because it was a safe option, but because it wasn't. He has made it clear that if greatness is the destination, avoiding dangerous opponents only postpones the journey. To him, Ennis is not a threat to avoid but a test to overcome, and that mindset explains why he is willing to step into a fight where many expect him to come up short. The underdog label doesn't seem to bother him either, and that may be what makes him so dangerous. Fighters who embrace that role often compete with a freedom that can disrupt expectations because they aren't burdened by the need to justify predictions. They are motivated by the chance to prove them wrong. Still, confidence alone cannot change reality, and reality says that Ennis presents a serious challenge. His speed is more than just quick, it's disruptive, forcing opponents to second-guess their timing in the middle of exchanges. His ring IQ allows him to make adjustments on the fly, reading opponents as if he already knows what comes next. That combination has made him one of the most feared fighters in the division. Yet Zayas does not see him as unbeatable. In fact, he believes there is something many observers have noticed but rarely focus on. Ennis can be hit. It may sound like a small detail, but at the highest level of boxing, one clean shot can change far more than a single round. It can change the entire fight.
There's a big fight coming up June 27th at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Okay? 23-year-old undefeated Puerto Rican star boxer Xander Zayas. He will be defending his unified WBO, WBA titles and putting his 23-win, no-loss, no-draw, 13-win by way of knockout resume on the line against the Phenom, as I refer to him as, former unified lineal WBA, IBF, Ring Magazine welterweight champion, now junior middleweight title contender, Jaron Ennis, who is 35 wins, no loss, no draw, 31 wins by way of knockout.
Zayas believes previous opponents have failed to take full advantage of those openings, lacking the precision, patience, or timing needed to capitalize when the opportunities appeared. He, however, is convinced he can. That confidence isn't built on arrogance, but on the steady progress he has seen throughout his career. With every fight, he adds new layers to his skill set, refining his technique, improving his decision-making, and strengthening his ability to adjust under pressure. He doesn't view himself as a finished product, which may be exactly why he's willing to accept a challenge that many others would delay. On the other side, Ennis doesn't seem particularly concerned. Interestingly, he admitted that he hadn't paid much attention to Zayas earlier in his career and only recently began studying his fights ahead of this matchup. That detail reveals something important because it shows that Zayas has gone from being overlooked to becoming impossible to ignore, a transition every rising fighter eventually has to make. Now both men find themselves on a collision course, surrounded by growing expectations and building anticipation with every passing day. Promoters like Eddie Hearn have already praised the matchup as exactly what boxing needs, highlighting the willingness of both fighters to put their undefeated records on the line in pursuit of something far more meaningful than another safe victory.
Your stablemates, Xander Zayas,
man,
is stepping up into a really big fight with Jaron Ennis. It seems to be like if he wins, that's like the next level for him.
Yep.
Very tough contest. What's your thoughts about the fight?
What are my thoughts? Xander is going to have to pull something out of him that he's never pulled out. I think that he's going to rise to the occasion. I think Boots is a very skilled fighter, fights southpaw, orthodox, can box, can punch. I haven't really seen him in there with anybody that can really go to the body, you know, so
The Brooklyn setting adds another compelling layer to the story, bringing together fans from Puerto Rico and Philadelphia for an atmosphere that promises to feel more like a major cultural event than a typical fight night. The energy, the stakes, and the storylines all suggest something special is on the horizon. Yet one question continues to linger. What happens when preparation meets reality? Training alongside Canelo may sharpen Zayas' skills, but it won't step into the ring for him. Everything learned in that gym will only matter if it translates under the bright lights against an opponent who is just as confident, just as prepared, and perhaps more experienced in handling high-pressure moments. At the same time, completely writing off Zayas feels like a mistake, the kind boxing has punished countless times before. Upsets never send a warning in advance. They emerge in the middle of fights when momentum suddenly shifts and expectations begin to crumble. This matchup exists right at that intersection where expectation meets possibility. Zayas is chasing more than a victory. He's chasing legacy, fully aware that a win over Ennis would immediately place him in a different class of fighter, one reserved for those willing to take risks and deliver when the pressure is at its highest.
A lot of things that I can take advantage of. I got the speed, I got the power, I got the technique, I got the length, I got the strength, I got the IQ. There's a lot of things I can take into consideration when it comes to breaking down his style.
But he also mentions that you get hit a lot.
The same way he does.
To avoid that.
The same way he does.
Yeah.
Try to move my head the same way he tried to move his head. And
Keep your head on the swivel. Keep your head on the swivel.
You took this fight and showed your confidence.
Yeah.
Why do you think he put a 55-45 to try to double your confidence?
Because that was the first thing or negotiation they had with Virgil. 55-45 to the winner. But again, me bringing in 2 belts and giving the opportunity for 2 belts when I didn't need to, I feel like a 50-50 was being generous to him because I could have.
Ennis, meanwhile, is defending more than an undefeated record. He is protecting a reputation built on dominance, precision, and the belief that he represents the future of the division. Only one of those narratives can emerge unchanged, and in the background of it all remains the image of Zayas working alongside Canelo, absorbing lessons that may not fully reveal their value until the fight is already unfolding. That brings the story back to where it began. If those reports are accurate, this isn't simply another training camp. It's a transformation taking place in real time. The question is whether that transformation will be enough, because eventually, every lesson learned in training stops being theory and becomes survival under the lights. Ennis thrives in those moments, turning hesitation into punishment before most opponents even realize they've made a mistake. That's what makes the Canelo connection such an intriguing subplot. Training with someone like Canelo Álvarez isn't about copying his style. It's about absorbing his mentality. It's about remaining calm when everything around you is accelerating and making the right decisions when exhaustion begins testing your discipline.
I started boxing when I was actually 5 years old. My mom put me in boxing to learn how to defend myself. And, you know, my first fight came around when I was around 6. And I'll say around
age 8 to 10, I fell in love with the sport, and I was like, Mom, this is what I wanted to do. And, you know, at that time, she was, okay, you might forget about this in a couple years. And I continued the course, you know, keep winning nationals, keep, you know, doing my thing. And when the opportunity presented itself, you know, I signed with Top Rank at 16.
At such a young age, how do you deal with pressure like that? How do you stay grounded?
You know, I have a great team. Starting.
The real question is whether those lessons can withstand the kind of pressure Jaron Ennis brings when he turns a boxing ring into a calculated storm. He doesn't just win rounds. He disrupts patterns. He reads rhythm like a language and then deliberately breaks it to see how his opponent responds. That's what makes this matchup so fascinating for analysts, because Zayas is reaching a new level at the exact moment he's being tested by a fighter who specializes in exposing weaknesses and punishing unfinished development. Yet there's something about Zayas that refuses to fit the typical underdog narrative. He carries himself like someone who has already overcome the hardest obstacle, not the fight itself, but the doubt surrounding whether he belongs on this stage. If that confidence proves justified, this stops being a prediction and becomes a real-time problem for Ennis to solve. Boxing has always had a way of rewarding timing over reputation. And if Zayas has learned anything from spending time around greatness, it's that defining moments never wait for permission. Now everything comes down to one night, one ring, and two fighters who both believe they are the future of the division, with only one leaving closer to proving it.
The matchup just, you know, they're still two young guys. Boots is 28, but he's still a young guy. He's in his prime. And, you know, Xander Zayas is 23. And when I look at this matchup initially, the first thing I think about is it too soon for Xander Zayas. Some would say, but he's still he's a two-time world champion. That doesn't mean that he's ready for this. And I like Xander a lot. I like him a lot personally. I like his movement. I like how he's carried himself. I've seen his growth, you know, calling his fights on ESPN. He's got a lot to like. He's got the range. He's got the height. He's tough. You know, he's got a whole country behind him, and he fully embraces trying to be the next great Puerto Rican champion.